Stepmom's Inferno, how she torched memories and sent Dad to the ER. I never thought I'd be sitting here sipping coffee and confessing to the world that my stepmother was the ultimate royal pain in my backside. But, as they say, the truth is stranger than fiction, right? It's a story that'll make you laugh, cry, and possibly scream for me. But stick with me, folks, it gets even more ridiculous. Growing up with a stepmother was like being part of a family comedy special. Each new day was like opening up a present, not knowing whether I got a great set of joke-filled jokes from Amazon or an epic rant from the stepmother because I the cap off the toothpaste. Little did I know, life had a lot more humor in store for me, mostly courtesy of that fabulous stepmother of mine. Our journey began the day my dad brought her into our lives with an "I found the one" grin plastered on his face. My friends were floored. Wow, is that a wedding dress? You guys didn't even give us a heads up? And nope, I think I left the faucet running at home. Do we have any spare toilet paper? Yes, those are some exciting stuff, folks. Well, on a more serious note, things were new, and you know the phrase, time will tell. Her prerequisites for fitting into the family were, well, let's just say quite unconventional. Apparently, she was going to break all sorts of records. She'd win the competition in kindness to break the family of old skeletons of negative family energy. I never got that off my plate. Bring romance home by whispering dirty talk into Dad's ear during the dinner party, no less. Be a part of the main course on the dinner plate of success. Not quite clear what break the curse of negative family energy was either, perhaps a supernatural task for wizardry. I have a funny anecdote to get you in the right mood for this story. We had the soothsayer relative in our family who insisted she found some evil spirits obsessing over our household that deserves some prayers and wafers for repentance. On 80 degrees outside during the warmest day of the year with my winter sweat seeping through the windows every night, our stepmother conjured this way to clean any bad vibes out the house. Imagine it, with cue bad magic ritual. Her special candles were burning with less focus, water, and no amount of effort to cleanse the spirits than her attempt to help in general. Like I'm praying loudly and I expect immediate results while standing on a moon rug under 42 degrees at 6 p.m. midnight. Thank you. Mind you, I find such old habits weird to make our conversations funny or humorous. Times, you never know if that strange behavior that could benefit the household actually helped. There's so much more to the drama-filled adventures my stepmother took me on. Her expectations seemed to be sky high, except those from me, my siblings, and father, they were ridiculously low. On the brighter side, she brought this out in the household when my old and somewhat out-of-fashion dad donned her shoes in the 1980s and began acting like the cool person everyone wanted to be while putting on a thick Southern accent while saying, "I am trying to influence them youngins." Honestly, where good comedy comes to. Let me take you back in time to a world where fairy tales were actually a little too real. You know those evil stepmothers from fairy tales? The ones who'd make your eyes water just thinking about them? Well, mine made them look like Mother Teresa. I mean, if Mother Teresa had a mean streak and a vendetta against children, that is. It's been 2 years since my mom passed away. I know it's a period in my life that I'm still processing and probably will be for a long time. When my dad met Sarah, let's just call her that for now, because even thinking about her real name sends shivers down my spine, I thought things couldn't get any worse. But my friends, I was so wrong. At first, Sarah came across as nice. Really, really nice. Maybe a bit too nice. Like, she sent me fluorized icing cookies as a get-well gift. Nice. It was almost as if she was trying to outdo my mom. Almost. I tried to brush it off, thinking she'd eventually come around to being just another family member. I mean, who doesn't want a stepmom, right? But 2 years flew by in a blur of countless household chores I had to do for her, every single one of them a sign from my dad, I'm convinced. The ironing would be too big, the vacuuming too hard. It was as if she had this insatiable appetite for helping me become the most well-mannered person in the world, while my dad sat by, lazily letting her micromanage our lives. But it all started with the idea of love. I remember we were having dinner, trying to make family bonding more like, well, family bonding, I guess. Sarah spoke about how much she loved me and my dad. It was like an endless stream of lovely, saccharine-sweet words. They filled my heart with worry, and I began to go down that rabbit hole. I fearlessly took on the role of a little son who tries to be in his mom's place, to compete for love, thinking it's impossible to replace my mother. In the following years, I wished to turn back the clock and keep the memory of the man my dad was, affectionately addressing my mom as a partner whom he loved unconditionally. It's a night I still can't believe happened. 2 a.m. on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday. At least, it should have been ordinary. But it wasn't. Not with Sarah calling me with the news I'll never get out of my head. I grab my phone, the screen lighting up in the dark to reveal her number, and I know exactly who it is before I even answer. Who else would call me at this ungodly hour, giggling and slurring their words? Sarah, what's going on? I try to sound calm, but I can already feel my heart racing, like it's trying to keep up with her. I finally did it, she exclaims, as if this is something to be celebrated. I finally got rid of your precious mommy's things. They're all gone, now, every last bit of her. My eyes widen as I process what she's saying. I should have known this was coming. She always had it in for my mom. I've seen her rolling her eyes whenever a picture of my mom would come up on social media or in conversation. But still, hearing it from her mouth like this, it's just a different story. My hands are shaking so bad I need to pull over to the side of the road just to hold onto the wheel. I'm halfway out of the parking lot when I realize I need to tell someone. I'm about to call a friend, but then I remember my dad is up at his place, a comfortable little bachelor pad, and I decide to call him instead. I dial his number, my heart still racing from Sarah's news. Dad, it's me, I say when he answers. Hey kiddo, what's up? He asks, his voice already sounding like he's had a cup of coffee. I take a deep breath before spilling the beans. It's Sarah, Dad. She's been cleaning out Mom's stuff and, pause for dramatic effect, it's all gone. I can already sense the impending doom, but nothing, and I mean nothing, could prepare me for what happens next. My dad's voice, initially calm and collected, suddenly turns to panic. I swear I can hear him grabbing for his pill bottle as he speaks. We have to get you to the hospital now, he says, his words tumbling over each other like a person in an emergency situation. But it's too late. The damage is done. My dad slumps against the bed, his words caught in his throat as his body gives out under the strain. I'm listening in horror as his heart, that old reliable engine, starts to fail him right there over the phone. Unbelievably, I find myself thinking, you've got to be kidding me. I quickly find a hospital, racing there as paramedics converge on his location. When I arrive, I'm greeted by an endless stream of white coats, trying to save my dad's life. They get him stable, however grueling the experience is for both of us. You know what people say, that when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But honestly, I don't know how to process this situation. How can you turn the aftermath of a heart attack into something positive? Maybe, though, that's a thought for another time. I walked out of the hospital feeling like I'd run a marathon, only to be hit with the infamous first world problem. My phone battery was dead. A little voice in my head whispered, "Guess it's a sign from the universe. Take a break, you've earned it." Little did I know that my break was just about to get a whole lot longer. The next few days were a chaotic mix of hospital corridors, beeping machines, and an endless stream of bad coffee. My dad was in ICU. I had it on good authority that it stood for I'm completely uncomfortable, and I was stuck in limbo. The doctors and nurses were like a never-ending assembly line of bad news and worse hairstyles. I swear, some of them must have been suffering from bedhead. It was as if their hair had decided to stage a revolt against gravity. Meanwhile, my trusty sidekick, aka my stepmom Sarah, was MIA, or as I like to call it, missing in action. I'm pretty sure I'd even seen her Instagram stories from a zoo visit with her new boyfriend. Nice combo, by the way, animal lovers and cheaters. But hey, I'm sure the baby monkeys were just a coincidence. Now where was I? Ah yes, Sarah. Where was my lovely stepmom? Oh, she was busy, all right. While my dad was fighting for his life, she was sending me pictures of ashes, actual pictures of what remained of my mom's belongings. You know, like someone took a before and after photo, but instead of a stunning facelift, it was more like, ta-da! Nothing but sad, soggy remains of your mom's stuff, just to remind me that the only thing that mattered was Sarah's Instagram aesthetic, not, my dad's health. I must admit, at that point, I was starting to have a severe case of daddy issues. Not just because of my dad's condition, but also because I was starting to question his taste in significant others. I mean, who gets a stepmom like that when your spouse is in the ICU? It's like she thought I was going to be all, "Oh, wow, I'm so sorry to hear about your mother's stuff being on fire," and then proceed to ask for her Instagram handle so I could follow her impeccable taste in burnt belongings. And don't even get me started on the obligatory Facebook post, sending you love and support during this difficult time. And also, I'm sending you all the sad emojis to match the lovely pictures of ashes you sent me. Who knew Facebook etiquette was a thing? Apparently, my stepmom was an expert. I'll never forget the day my dad walked out the door, leaving me and my sibling in the clutches of our eccentric stepmother. It was like a scene from a bad family sitcom, except the laughs were few and far between. Fast forward a few weeks, and Dad was stable enough to come home. We were overjoyed to see him, but also wary of what our stepmother would do next. As it turned out, her nefarious plans involved purging our home of all the old junk that held sentimental value to us. The same junk that our dad had lovingly accumulated over the years. Let's call it heirloom sentimental value. I can only imagine what she thought we were. Some sort of dysfunctional, buried treasure hunters. When Dad was stable enough to come home, we finally confronted her together. We expected her to, at the very least, display a modicum of remorse. But that's not exactly what happened. You'd think she'd show some remorse, right? Wrong. She stood there in our living room, arms crossed, telling us we should be thankful she cleaned out all that old junk. Yeah, that old junk. The couch my dad had hand-painted, the stained glass collection, the shrine dedicated to every school yearbook photo, those priceless memories she deemed useless clutter. As we watched her heroically strut around the newly decluttered living room, it occurred to us that she was essentially competing in some sort of bizarre Stepmother of the Year competition. The kind where you have to complete challenges like make the kids cry the most in a week, or accuse your spouse of hoarding the most things. No running commentary is required because this is what it's like to live with a stepmother who wants to outcorrect the competition. I remember the day I had had enough of my stepmother's antics. The usual passive-aggressive comments and backhanded compliments just weren't cutting it anymore. That's when her true colors really showed. "I'm tired of competing with a dead woman," she spat. I was taken aback. Not because of the insult itself, but because I was convinced that was just her go-to phrase whenever she thought I was being the center of attention. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. She'd been making pilot gas station-style snappy comebacks and withering put-downs since I first arrived at our so-called family home. Like that time I tried to cook a simple omelette for breakfast. You think making an omelette is hard? My mother could make 100 omelettes while on her deathbed. Yeah, I got the picture. That woman was always trying to remind me that I wasn't the primary goddess of the household. Her whole vendetta against my stepfather's deceased wife hit me like a ton of bricks when I walked into our dining room and found her regally presiding over her vast collection of antique knickknacks. I swear, her pictures, her things, and her memory, along with photos of herself at the very least, seemed to be the center of creation in that house. My whole existence felt relegated to mere supplemental, a bonus feature, a sad trombone soundtrack played softly in the background while the leading lady took center stage. Meanwhile, I felt like Alice in a crazy maze, trapped in some inexplicable limbo where everything belonged to her. Who needed an heir when you had an eerie shrine dedicated to the deceased wife? And then there was the cherry on top. What about me? She asked with all the conviction of a tired kindergarten teacher. I honestly couldn't tell if she genuinely wanted to be part of this madness or was simply coasting on a wave of bitter complacency. I still remember the day my dad introduced us to his new fiancée, Sarah. My extended family was in utter shock. Some of them even needed oxygen tanks on standby. I mean, Aunt Jenny was like a crisis hotline on wheels, sprinting from one worried face to another, spewing words of caution and attempting to play referee. But little did we know, Sarah's master plan was only just beginning to unfold. At every family gathering, she'd carefully weave a web of deceit, manipulating the conversations to paint herself as the sympathetic one, and my family as the villainous brigade. It was like a bad soap opera, minus the excitement. I recall one particularly eventful dinner, where Sarah dramatically reenacted our supposed atrocities to my dad's friends. They were enthralled by her courage and bravery, completely oblivious to the massive web of lies she was spinning. I mean, we were basically villains, according to her twisted narrative. My dad's friends were completely taken in and promptly turned against us, only to squirm out of their pledge of allegiance when confronted with facts. The whole ordeal left everyone uncomfortable, but also kind of amused by the ridiculousness of it all. Meanwhile, Aunt Jenny's valiant attempts to reason with Sarah were met with mocking smiles and dismissive headshakes. It was like Sarah was a ticking time bomb, just waiting to unleash an avalanche of half-truths and anecdotes that would suffocate anyone who dared to question her ego. My family tried their best to remain neutral, but trust me, it was a tightrope act with Sarah as the unpredictable acrobat. At one point, Sarah even took it upon herself to coach my dad on how to best manipulate his in-laws, i.e. my family members. Newsflash, you shouldn't have a step-in-laws training manual. My dad was completely oblivious to the fact he was being played, and hilariously provided the perfect straight comic relief. It's funny how our lives can spiral out of control, and before we know it, we're staring at a step-parent from hell situation that's sucking the joy out of our lives. For me and my dad, it was like that. We thought we'd made a decent decision in inviting Sarah into our lives, but boy, were we wrong. One day, as we sat in our living room, both of us clad in matching "I'm not arguing, I'm just presenting my point of view" t-shirts, we came to the realization that we needed help, and fast. It dawned on us that we were wrestling with a formidable foe, a battle-hardened, rage-filled battle axe of a step-parent. I mean, who needs that kind of drama in your life? Not me, that's for sure. That's when we decided to take a bold step and seek help from a professional. Enter Attorney Thompson, our savior in a three-piece suit. Specializing in family law, she'd seen it all, done it all, and still managed to walk out of court with a smile on her face. Unlike Sarah, who'd glue herself to the chair and maintain an expression that could thaw Antarctic temperatures. Attorney Thompson walked into the room, observed our case, and pronounced the following verdict. You both look a bit bereft. I can see you need a lifeline. She briskly got to work, unraveling our whole story while scribbling furious notes on a yellow notepad. I swelled with pride, thinking to myself, this is it. She's got it right. She's going to help us wrangle this rabid raccoon into submission. Seconds ticked by like millennia as she assessed our case. Her furrowed eyebrows seemed to be plotting our salvation, even as she intoned those ominous words. You folks need to get Sarah out of your lives, and this time it has to be legally and permanently. And I'm pretty sure if I'd scratched my ears at that moment, I'd have turned myself into a human chocolate fountain. Attorney Thompson never flinched, but Sarah, bless her acid-spewing heart, nearly upended the room with her disgruntled screech. Okay, maybe that was a minor exaggeration, but Sarah certainly shrieked loud enough to awaken every zombie within a 5-mile radius. Despite her ear-piercing outburst, Attorney Thompson quipped in response, looks like we're getting somewhere. The enemy knows we're serious. The battle begins. Oh boy, was I psyched. We were on the glide path to dodging our stepmother, who'd mysteriously turned into some sadistic creature from a B-grade horror flick. The next move was clear. The arsenal was being geared up to dismantle her once and for all. At the same time, as her screams of dissent tumbled and whizzed around the room, it truly felt like we discovered our rocket fuel, specifically with a dash of revenge and self-preservation. Even as panic set in for Sarah, and that demonic growl her voice brought to the room, things became utterly, absolutely perfect. That's when Attorney Thompson was busy perfecting the details of our case plan, making us all set for World Anagram Championship-sized verbal assaults soon to bloom from her mouth. I still can't believe what my ex-stepmom Sarah pulled off during the divorce proceedings. It was a real circus, and I'm the ringmaster's apprentice who got caught in the middle. My mom always said, "The truth will come to light, and everyone will see your true self. Little did she know that it would be Sarah who made our family's life a spectacle. My mom and I had been blissfully happy, living our perfect little life when Sarah came crashing in, ready to shake things up. Fast forward to a few years later, and she's now the self-proclaimed rightful owner of our family's treasures. Divorce, in our experience, was like a punchline waiting to be delivered. Sarah's humor was the main ingredient in what would become a real-life sitcom. As the attorneys started battling it out, Sarah's lawyer started rummaging through our family's financial books, trying to conjure up something, anything, to get more money. That's when the bombshell dropped. She wanted half of Mom's life insurance money, claimed it was for the suffering she endured during the marriage on our behalf. Oh, yes, she felt so victimized by our love that she became emotionally distressed. Yeah, sure, Sarah. Emotionally distressed due to the happiness you couldn't bring into our family's lives. It gets even better. She had the audacity to claim victimhood after destroying some of our family's most precious memories. Who needs family when you can get a fat settlement? Am I right? It was her assertion that my mom's emotional well-being took a hit while she was busy trying to erase our childhood and make herself the sole ruler of the kingdom. Bless her heart, I guess. Anyway, things didn't end there. We had to provide statements to support Sarah's claim. Statements that she emotionally tortured us both. Her lawyer suggested we submit pictures. Ouch, how do you put a price on your sanity? The reality was that she'd managed to make our lives miserable enough, and now we were expected to prove our happiness was forged at the expense of her fragile emotional state. That was just the beginning, folks. Stay tuned for more drama-filled installments of our Severine family saga, where money, mean-spirited behavior, ridiculous claims, and my mom's boundless love for our family are the only things on the menu. Oh boy, the infamous 6 months wait for her to sign the divorce papers. It felt like eternity, or at the very least, a century of torturous uncertainty. We thought the end was never going to come, but finally, on a drizzly spring morning, the mail arrived with a welcome certified letter declaring our freedom. It was like stepping into a bright, sun-kissed utopia after being trapped in a dark, damp dungeon. The moment that little piece of paper got signed, my dad let out a sigh of relief. So loud it could have been mistaken for the rumbling of a thunderstorm in the distance. His eyes sparkled like diamonds under the morning light as he handed me the pen. The same pen that had been signed, coerced, and nearly run over by our steps villain. Together we watched as the ink dried, witnessed the realness of the page we were holding between our fingers, a definitive proof of our liberation. The transition. It took some getting used to, but slowly Dad's mood began to shift. No more defiant frowns or sullen silences lurking around every corner. He started noticing the little things again. A particularly delectable cup of coffee, a wonderful sunset, or even a good debate on sports. It was like he was unwrapping a layer of protective wrapping to reveal a bright, crisp flower. Delicate, yet resilient, a sight for sore eyes indeed. Life started falling into place, falling into its natural rhythm. We chuckled more often, our smiles as genuine as they were wide. The daily dose of horror slowly dissipated, giving way to the everyday joy and fulfillment of our newfound freedom. A typical Tuesday morning morphed into a Sunday brunch worthy of Instagram's finest spring scenes, just a whole lot happier than it was just a few months prior. And just to appreciate it all a bit better, I like to reflect on that period of our life as a form of an ancient healing ritual. Rub the stones, the essence will purify, and so forth. In this peculiar case, cleansing from a poisonous presence miraculously ushered us straight into a new era, our own time to harvest the blossoms that had begun to gently rise above the icy soil after all those cold, harsh winter months. With a much cleaner slate, a more serene landscape loomed on the horizon, making the road ahead rather exciting indeed. You know, I'm not exactly the attic cleaning type. In fact, I'm more of a avoid the attic like the plague kind of person. But as fate would have it, I got tasked with cleaning out the attic. A task so daunting that it could have given even the bravest of people a few gray hairs. As I lugged out boxes upon boxes of treasure-read old junk, I couldn't help but think to myself, what am I doing with my life? It's like I was on a mission to uncover the secrets of the attic, one dusty box at a time. Or maybe I was just searching for a reason to procrastinate. Fast forward a few hours, or what felt like an eternity, and I stumbled upon an old Christmas ornament box. I mean, this thing was labeled like it was a Fort Knox safe. I took one look at the box, shrugged, and thought, why not? Little did I know that this box would hold the key to a long-forgotten memory, one that would change my life forever. As I rummaged through the box, I pulled out a folded paper that seemed to be pleading, "Pick me, pick me." Okay, maybe I'm anthropomorphizing a bit, but it felt like it. I unfolded the paper, and what I read took my breath away. The letter was from my mom, and it was addressed to me, specifically. Yeah, I know, deep down I always knew my mom was a super cool mom, but this was something else. She had written it just before she passed away, and it was tucked away so carefully in this Christmas ornament box, as if she knew it would be exactly where I'd find it when I needed it most. As I read through the letter, I found myself transported back to happier times. Memories I had long forgotten came flooding back. Memories of laughter, of love, of life. But most importantly, I found the love she spoke of in the letter. It wasn't stored in things like that Christmas ornament box. It lived in my heart. In a strange twist of fate, because let's be real, this is a pretty wild story, I finally understood the true meaning behind closure. Closure isn't about finding a bunch of stuff in an attic. It's about finding peace. It's about giving yourself permission to let go of the past and move on. And more importantly, it's about remembering that love is the greatest treasure of all. I read the letter over and over, till the paper must have gotten dog-eared beyond recognition. I may not have found the most precious diamond, but in a way, I discovered something far more valuable. Something that she left behind, not for me to hold hostage, but to truly live on. Her love. Well, well, well. Look who's finally escaped from that step-parent prison. It's me, and I've got the scars to prove it. But don't worry, I'm not here to relive all the horrors I endured under the watchful eye of that cruel stepmom. No. No, my friends. I'm here to celebrate the liberation, the freedom, and the ridiculous love of a family that's more like a dysfunctional circus than a cohesive unit. Those were the days when Dad would try to be a superhero, shielding me from the wrath of Sarah's penny-pinching and punishments. He'd attempt to intervene, but what could he do when faced with the combined forces of a bitter ex-wife and a new wife with a permanent scowl on her face? But all that is behind us now, and we're living our best lives in our new home, which I must admit feels alien at times. Like a stranger in a strange land, I keep looking for the door to escape, only to realize I'm home at last. We've created new memories, some good, some hilarious, and a few just plain weird. These aren't the memories I expected, but who needs normalcy when family can give you a full-blown personality disorder? As for Sarah, the notorious stepmom, last I heard, she's trying to break the world record for most number of times a single person can say "don't do that" in a single sentence. I wish her all the best in that endeavor, but I'm not buying my ticket to that circus anytime soon. And now, as I stand here, looking out the window, watching the sunset over a world that's no longer filled with tears, fights, and midnight visits to the pantry, I realize that sometimes even the most unlikely escape plans can lead to the most satisfying endings. Who knew that growing up in a household with a would-be villain, a wannabe superhero, and a pinch of dark humor would prepare me for life?